are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I am your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, February 7th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get right into what we will discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Brock Purdy making history when he takes his first snap on Sunday. He'll become the third youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, so we'll get into that in the list of quarterbacks that he joins with that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about Andy Reid and his comments on the speculation of him retiring. We'll get into that as Media Day or Media Week continues, leading up to the Super Bowl. Then in the third part of the show, so I know we did a GOAT discussion when it came to the quarterback position, but now I want to talk about the tight end position. So we'll talk about Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski, and I'll give you my thoughts on that debate. And then in the final part of the show, taking a step away from the Super Bowl stuff, we'll talk about the Steelers quarterback situation because ownership had some comments regarding that. And that'll be it for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Brock Purdy making history when he takes his first snap on Sunday. So he will become the third youngest, as you see on the title of the segment, he'll become the third youngest QB to start a Super Bowl. So he joins quarterbacks like Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger, David Woodley. This was an article that I looked up on CBS. Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady. So they're just listing a bunch of quarterbacks, but he yeah, so it's good company to be joining, and it remains to be seen, how he's going to perform in the Super Bowl because they do have also the stats for the QBs that'll be playing in the game as that played in their Super Bowl. So Dan Marino was 23 years and 127 days. He went 29 of 50 for 318 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Ben Roethlisberger, he was 23 years old, almost 24. He went 9 of 21, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a touchdown run. That came against the Seahawks. That was his first Super Bowl championship. And I'm trying to, because there's also a video that goes along with it. I wanted to go back to the beginning of the video because it had, where Brock Purdy was among the list of youngest quarterbacks, but now for some reason it's not showing it. But anyways, so yeah, Big Ben, Dan Marino. You also had David Woodley of the Dolphins. He was 24 years old. He went 4 of 14, 97 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Jared Goff, in his only Super Bowl appearance, he was 24 years old, 112 days, 19 of 38, 229 yards, and an interception. Patrick Mahomes was 24 years old and 138 days. He went 26 of 42, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and that, of course, was the first Super Bowl against the 49ers. Tom Brady was 24 years old, 184 days, 16 of 27, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Of course, you had Jalen Hurts last year, 3 touchdown runs, 304 yards passing, and a touchdown pass. That was to A.J. Brown. So, yeah, all right, so now they're showing it. So, yeah, so Purdy kind of, is in between Big Ben and David Woodley. So, yeah, hence why he'll become the 3rd youngest QB to start a Super Bowl. But, yeah, you get the idea. It shows Drew Bledsoe, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson. But, yeah, you get the idea. I know. I was running through the whole list. But, yeah, and, we'll see now when he takes his first snap how he's going to be. Again, watching some more media clips from yesterday. I don't think this moment is going to faze him. I think he has enough confidence where the lights aren't going to be too bright. Now, it does depend on, how is he going to perform? Because again, he's going up against a good defense. He's got a ton of playmakers around him, which helps. But for me, from how he was talking to the media, I don't really think this moment is going to faze him. I think he's going to. I think he's going to play well. Maybe it's just me being too confident. But I do worry, again, like I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, is how slow the 49ers have started these last 2 playoff games, because you can't afford that in this game. You just can't against the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, fortunately for him, he's got enough playmakers around him where the 49ers are going to make plays. And I think the Super Bowl will be entertaining. That's really what we're all hoping for. But again, you got people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to watch it." It's like, you're going to watch it. Stop saying you're not going to watch it. But yeah, I have confidence that Purdy will play well. Now, again, is it going to be enough to win? We'll see. But again, he's joining a good list of quarterbacks. That's for sure. And again, it's really incredible what he's been able to accomplish, in his first full year starting at quarterback. And again, I know there's going to be people that, and yeah, I agree. I don't understand why people just are hating on him. Well, I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, the guy seems very humble. He's fortunate that he's, in this position. I mean, you get picked last in the draft. I mean, if you're a late round quarterback, a lot of times, and you look at Tom Brady, of course, as an exception, you're not really expected to be the guy, and that's what he's become. And I've said it, I think he operates this offense, better than any of the quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has had since he's taken over as the coach of the 49ers. And you could look at the quarterbacks and say, yeah, they got some bad breaks. Like Garoppolo and Trey Lance, they dealt with injuries, and you could say Trey Lance never really got a fair shot. But Brock Purdy, when he got his opportunity, he really has, taken advantage of every moment. And the fact that, they made it to the NFC Championship game last year, and now they're in the Super Bowl this year, I mean, you got to say that he's a big part of that. Because if it was Garoppolo, if it was Trey Lance, would they have gotten to this position? And a lot of people could easily say, well, yes, because of the roster that they have. But I don't know. I think for me, listen, Purdy is not an elite quarterback, but I think he's solid, and I think he's a little bit more than a game manager. But again, I get it with all the playmakers that you have on offense, your offensive line. Kyle Shanahan is your head coach. You got the pieces in place to be successful. But, you still got to make the throws. You still got to be able to make plays and improvise. And, when Purdy's had to take off and run with it, he's done that. He's done a good job at doing that. So, I think he's more than a game manager. But he's not. You can't say he's in the same class as, again, Patrick Mahomes is in a class of his own. And, I think he's... I think Purdy's just somewhere in the middle, but I wouldn't put him in the elite quarterback class, But I still think he's solid. And again, we'll see how he performs in this game. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him, but again, you're going up against the defending champs. They've been there before so many times. So, it's going to be tough. But, when you have the best running back in the game, you got one of the best tight ends, and you got two very good wide receivers. Deebo Samuel, obviously, could be a running back as well. And Juwan Jennings also has made plays. It's hard for me to see the Niners offense not doing anything in this game. But it's just, again, how they've started off these last couple of weeks, that's, makes me pause a little bit. But, again, we'll see what happens. Because, again, the Chiefs' run defense is not the best. And you even hear when George Kittle was talking, that they're going to hand it off to Christian McCaffrey a bunch of times. That should be the game plan. You got to give it to McCaffrey. Keep Mahomes in that offense off the field. So, and we'll see, because, I've said this numerous times during the playoffs for certain teams. Get the ball, go right down the field and score. Score a touchdown right away. Set the tone. Because obviously, you don't want to be down 7-0 to the Chiefs right away, and that happened to the Ravens. They had a quick 3-and-out, and then the Chiefs went right down the field and scored a touchdown. Now, then the Ravens did answer, and there really wasn't a lot of scoring after that. It was only 3 points scored in the second half of that game. For the Niners, you can't afford a slow start. You got to get the ball, go right down the field and score. But you could also look at last year's Super Bowl. The Eagles, on their first drive, they went right down the field. They scored a touchdown. And then what happened? The Chiefs answered with a touchdown. So, I mean, I don't know. But a lot of people are betting, Chiefs money line, Chiefs spread, because it's like, why is Mahomes an underdog? So, and one of my coworkers was making me rethink, my pick for the Super Bowl, just because, because he's kind of been right on certain occasions, and I still went against him. So I'm like, well, if I go against you again, it hasn't favored me this year. So I may rethink my pick, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, so there's still time. There's still a couple of days left, but we'll see. But I'll probably, I don't know. I don't know. Still got some time. And, I mean, we're almost there, halfway through the week. And, still got some other things we can cover. And then, of course, Friday's going to be, we'll make predictions and, preview the game. And also, actually, we got the NFL Honors coming up as well. So I actually wanted to do a segment of that. I don't know if I'll do it either tomorrow or Friday. I'll have to think about it, because I guess maybe Friday, maybe tomorrow, just because then Friday I could just spend the whole show talking about the Super Bowl. But again, we'll think about. I'll be thinking about this, throughout the day today, and you'll know by tomorrow. But I mean, that's pretty much it when talking about this particular topic. Again, Brock Purdy's joining some good company when he takes that first snap in the Super Bowl. And again, I think I don't think this moment's going to be too big for him. I think he'll be ready for this. And you know what? He's got a lot of guys that played in the Super Bowl before, to help him out as well. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey will be playing in his first Super Bowl. Brandon Ayuk will be playing his first Super Bowl. But, the core of that team, they were there before. So, at least he's got that. They got that experience. So, again, we'll just have to see how the game goes. And, I'm hoping Purdy plays well. And, again, want the 49ers to win, but don't necessarily know if that is going to happen. But, so when we come back from our first break of the show, we are going to move on, talk about Andy Reid retirement speculation. We'll talk about, we're going to talk about the comments that he made regarding that. And, as we continue through Super Bowl Media Week. And yeah, so that'll be the second topic of the show when we come back from our first break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Andy Reid retirement speculation. Now, he was asked about it, and what he did say was, he was quoted by saying, "My mom and dad told me this when they were working. They said, you'll know when it's time." And I was trying to find the full quote, but you'll know when it's time. Today's not the day. So any speculation, rumors, things like that, he kind of squashed that. And because there was those rumors out there that, hey, maybe if he retires, Bill Belichick could slide in and just take over Andy Reid's spot with the Chiefs, which I thought would have been wild if that happened. But again, it's a hypothetical. It's it wouldn't. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, listen, you got him, you got Travis Kelce, them asking about retirement. I mean, listen, I think right now where the Chiefs are at, you don't want to jump off the train now. I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, for both Kelce and Andy Reid, I think the success that they've been able to sustain ever since Mahomes became a starter, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you can complain about it all you want, but you can't deny that what they've been able to do is incredible. And you thought once the Patriots and their run was over that, yeah, we'll see what happens. It probably won't happen again, but the Chiefs, they're on their way to repeating, what the Patriots have done. I mean, they still got a long way to go, but they win a Super Bowl here, they're a dynasty. They are 100%. I mean, they could already be one right now. Again, we've talked about the dynasty talk a lot, but what they've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time has been unbelievable. And I think Andy Reid's, as long as this team is still together, and you still have that quarterback, you want to continue to build up that resume too. Because obviously he's up there with some of the all-time greats when it comes to head coaches. And yeah, I mean, he's he turned 66 in March, and again, like, you got Mahomes and Kelce, and you have that defense now. I mean, look at the defense. What they've been able to become as a unit, because that was their weakness. And they were still winning Super Bowls with that defense. So the thing with Andy Reid now is a win in the Super Bowl would mark Reid's third championship, obviously, and elevate him to an elite group of coaches with multiple Super Bowl titles, including Bill Belichick, Chuck Noll. I mean, he already has multiple Super Bowls, but yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick, Chuck Noll, Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs. I wanted to find where he stacks up in terms of wins. Because he's getting up there. And obviously you want to maybe break that record. But yeah, so he's one of 13 head coaches with 2 or more Super Bowl wins, and would be one of 5 with at least 3 if the Chiefs beat the 49ers. Let's see if this is on ESPN. Let's see if this has it. I'm skimming through it. All right. Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if anybody knows where he kind of stacks up in terms of wins among some of the greatest head coaches, leave it in the comments. I mean, I'll go back and look for it, but I mean, listen, he's won a lot of games. I mean, especially ever since he took over as the head coach of the Chiefs, and then you get Mahomes. I mean, they have won a ton of games together. They've won a lot of playoff games. I mean, they've only lost to Tom Brady and Joe Burrow in the Mahomes era, which is incredible. They don't really lose in the playoffs. And if they do, it's in the championship game or it's in the Super Bowl. So if they lose again, it's going to be in the Super Bowl. It's hard to keep them out. So you really, it's pretty much automatic that you got to pencil them in to at least be in the championship game. But again, and what does that remind you of? The Patriots. And I know people can complain and say, oh, well, they'll never catch Brady. But I mean, still, what they've been able to do is unbelievable. But now they're the team that nobody wants to see. It's like, all right, can we get somebody else? But you know what? That's on the fault of all these teams that just no matter what they do, the Chiefs kind of downgraded on offense. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster had a good season last year, and he left. Kadarius Toney, I mean, what was going on with him during the season? I mean, again, responsible for a couple of losses in there. I mean, Rashee Rice, in the second half, really started becoming a contributor for this team. He's really developed into a nice player for them. I mean, he really is their number 1 wide receiver. So he's kind of, replaced Juju Smith-Schuster. It's crazy how we went from Tyreek Hill to Juju Smith-Schuster now to Rashee Rice. But yeah, I mean, listen, the Chiefs, they won a Super Bowl after Tyreek Hill got traded. And people didn't expect that. That's why I was just confused where there were topics on some of the sports shows like, talking about the Chiefs missing Tyreek Hill. But they literally just won the Super Bowl without him. So why is this even a topic? It didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, it's back to the original thing though. When it comes to Andy Reid retiring, yeah, I mean, we'll see how long he wants to coach for. I mean, I look at Belichick. I mean, Belichick's older. Andy Reid's going to want to... Andy Reid, I think, just wants to continue to build the resume. And I think as long as they have this team... Listen, they're the team to beat. And they have been for quite a while. Now, again, there's been teams that have beaten them. It's really only, 2 quarterbacks. Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. But, you look at these other teams that just have not been able to, get through. And you got the Bills, you got the Ravens now losing to them in the playoffs. The Dolphins, we looked at them earlier in their season and we're like, wow, this team offensively is amazing. I mean, they're going to be tough to stop. And, the Chiefs beat them twice. I mean, again, like, they really didn't have a shot in this playoff game. It was a tall task, and they dealt with a lot of injuries. And if this was the year to beat the Chiefs, this had to be the year, because, I mean, the struggles they were dealing with on offense, it's just, I mean, you look at some of the games that they lost this year, I mean, you go back to, probably the worst, the Raiders loss is definitely up there on Christmas. That loss, I was like, yeah, this team is just not, this team is not going to go anywhere this year. Well, I mean, they're going to go make the playoffs, but I didn't, but once they got in, I mean, obviously it was tough for me to say, I mean, am I going to really say the Chiefs are not going to, I mean, I at least said the Chiefs were not going to win the Super Bowl. I they could do whatever they want in the playoffs, but I was like, I don't think they're making it to the Super Bowl. I mean, I had them losing to the Ravens, and they went in there and they won. They beat Buffalo on the road. Talk about not being phased. They're not phased. They go into these hostile environments and they get the job done. And again, like, it's, you also want to, if you're Andy Reid, you also don't want to end up like Bill Belichick, where like the wheels just fall off and you end up having a 4-13 season, which I don't think is going to happen with the Chiefs as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. Now, Mahomes ends up getting hurt, knock on wood, during one of these years that he continues to coach. That's a different story because, without Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs are a very different team. They were able to, tread water when he got hurt in 2019. That was the year they won the Super Bowl, when he got hurt against the Broncos, and then they had to put Matt Moore in. They, won. I remember they beat the Vikings, so they were able to tread water until Mahomes came back. Thankfully for them, knock on wood, Mahomes has, been relatively healthy, and he's played in pretty much every game ever since he's become the starter. I mean, the only times he really, other than the year he was injured, it's when the Chiefs have their playoff spot locked up and they, sit all the starters, like this year in the last game of the regular season. But other than that, he's been healthy. I mean, obviously he did get hurt in the playoffs last year, but, he was able to gut it out and, come back into the playoff game against Jacksonville. And then, of course, playing in the championship game, playing in the Super Bowl, So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like Andy Reid did say, though. He said when it's time, he'll know when it's time. And I think right now that's not the case. So I think he's going to try to coach as long as he can. As long as the Chiefs keep having success, I think he's going to stick around. I think he wants to win, some more championships, and then he'll hang it up. And that includes this one right here, which, again, they win this. I mean, this, only adds to his resume, Mahomes' resume, Travis Kelce. I mean, it's, again, what they've been able to accomplish, what else is there to be said? Again, people might not be happy about it, looking at them as the new villain. But, I mean, for me, it's, it's whatever. As long as it's not a team that I dislike, I'm fine with it. But with the Chiefs, it's like it has a lot more to do with stuff that's happening outside of football as opposed to what's happening on the field. Now, everybody complains about the flags. That's the number one thing is, complaining about the flags and getting calls in your favor. That's what people don't like the Chiefs about, is that. Again, you go back to the Bills game when they lost. That's a prime example of that. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, when it doesn't pertain to football, it's the outside stuff that's going on. And, I mean, you kind of feel for Mahomes a little bit with some of the stuff that's, happened. But, because they did ask, him, regarding what's going on with his father, and he handled it the right way. It's a family thing. It's not our business. It's not the media's business to know. It's something that let them handle it privately, and you go from there. So, but yeah, it's just a lot of outside noise, I think, as to why and obviously, people are tired of seeing Taylor Swift on their TV, but I mean, does it really affect the game experience that much? I don't know. But yeah, so that's so let me know what you guys think about Andy Reid's comments. We again went off on a tangent here, but I mean, Andy Reid talking about retirement, and there's speculation. I mean, that's a big deal for the organization and even Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's been his head coach ever since he came into the league. So when that time, because that time's going to come eventually where, Mahomes is going to have a different head coach. And, how is that going to, how is he going to adapt? I mean, I think he'll be fine. But at some point that will happen. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about Andy Reid's comments regarding retirement. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will discuss the Travis Kelce-Rob Gronkowski debate. But before that, I just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about the Kelce-Gronkowski debate. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to discuss the Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce debate. Because along with the, there's a lot of debating going on with the Patriots and the Chiefs, just the comparisons. Obviously, again, the GOAT discussion with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. But there's also, you got the tight end position with Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. Now, these two guys are, the best tight ends of my lifetime. And in different ways. I mean, Gronkowski, just would truck people and drag people. He was unbelievable. And then, of course, Travis Kelce is more of like that elusive tight end, different styles, but both of them just, again, incredible tight ends. And I know it's like, Gronk is better, and but it's close. It's definitely close. So I kind of wanted to show the comparisons of the two teams, or the two players here. I pulled this up. This is courtesy of StatsPros.com. So they updated this. I think it was as of January 29th. So I'm hoping this is all updated. But you could see, at least the first three things here: games played, targets, receptions. Listen, with Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, they both do spread the ball around. Also you got, but you would I think, based off of this, you would say, Patrick Mahomes would target Kelce a lot, because, Kelce was like that number one wide receiver, especially, last year. With Gronk, dealt with some injuries. And Brady would spread the ball around. That just goes to show, like, how important, both guys are, to the their quarterbacks. But yeah, let's continue. So I'm going to try to do my best with, scrolling through here. So, catching percentage, receiving yards, yards per reception. You look at Gronkowski and touchdowns. Gronkowski has Kelce beat there in those categories. I mean, Gronk was a monster in the red zone. I mean, he just was. He was a freak. He was unbelievable. And obviously Kelce is a monster in the red zone too. But I mean, again, it shows how important they were to their quarterbacks. First downs, Kelce's got Gronk beat there. Longest catch, it's around the same. Kelce's got him beat. Yards per target, Gronk's got him beat there. Receptions per game, receiving yards per game. But yeah, that's the stats. The stat comparison. For those two guys. But I wanted to actually pull up their stats on Football Reference. So I'll pull up Kelce. If I can, I wanted to have the. Okay, so of course this Football Reference doesn't come up, but yeah. So I mean, Kelce, we go through his stats. I mean, ever since. So yeah, his first two seasons. He got drafted in 2013. Only played in one game. But yeah, 2014, 862 yards receiving, 875 yards receiving. Then after that, 1,000 yards every single year up until 2023. He had 984. But I mean, you look at 2020, 1,416 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. In 2022, he had 1,300 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns. I mean, he's been consistent. And obviously, when Patrick Mahomes took over as the starter, his numbers, only went up. 2018 was also a good season, 1,300 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns. That was Mahomes' first. You go back. So you go from 2014 to 2018. He had 5 touchdowns in 2014. 5 touchdowns in 2015, 4 in 2016, and 8 in 2017. And then Mahomes becomes the quarterback, and he has double-digit touchdowns for the first time in his career. So, I mean, like I said, his numbers only went up once Patrick Mahomes took over. And then you got Gronkowski, of course. You look at his numbers. His second season with the Patriots, he went from his rookie season where he only had 546 yards receiving, and he had 1,300 yards receiving the following season, 17 receiving touchdowns, 11 in 2012. He got hurt that season. He only played in 11 games. 2013, he only played in 7 games. 2014, he had 12 touchdowns. 2015, 11 touchdowns. 2016, only played in 8 games, had 3 touchdowns. 8 touchdowns the following season. 3 touchdowns in 2018, played in 13 games. And then with Tampa, he had 623 yards receiving and 802 yards receiving. He had 7 touchdowns in 2020 and 6 in 2021. But what hurt Gronk, of course, is injuries. And it's not like, it was non-contact. I mean, TJ Ward, tackled him, went into his knee head first. And he tore his ACL that season, I believe, because of that. Gronk's gotten banged up, a lot. And but again, that's because of, his size and, he's putting his body on the line, when he's playing this game. It's a rough game, And again, that goes back to the different style of play between these two guys. So again, it's definitely a good debate to have when you're talking about these two guys. Me personally, I would still probably say that Gronkowski is the better of the two. But again, it's very close. It's very close. And again, two different styles of play. I still would favor Gronkowski because I just feel like, the Patriots' second half, their second part of their dynasty, when they won that first Super Bowl against the Seahawks, that season, 2014, Gronk was unbelievable, and it's just unfortunate that injuries hurt his season. And, then he took he retired, and then, Brady said, hey, come to Tampa, play with me, and he's like, all right. And, listen, he didn't, put up insane stats, but, he still played a huge role in them winning a Super Bowl, and obviously, the first 2 years in Tampa with Brady, he's still, in the games that he played in, still played a factor, still played a role, got touchdowns when they needed, had 2 in the Super Bowl, They had a lot of success together, and, they went out together, basically. Gronk the season before, and then, Brady then played another year. Well, he originally retired, then he came back. But, and I think Brady definitely missed Gronk last year. But listen, Gronk has taken some punishment over the years. But, at the end of the day, when you're talking about both of these tight ends, they're both going to Canton. They might be going to Canton at the, maybe not this. I wouldn't say that. Well, because Kelce's like, I'm not ready to hang it up yet. They're both going to be in Canton. They're both 2 of the best tight ends that I've seen since I started watching football. Obviously you got other guys like Tony Gonzalez. And, George Kittle's also a pretty good tight end as well. But these 2 are the best tight ends of my lifetime. And, watching them has been great, and, I remember, being really happy for Gronk getting his first ring. Because, again, the Patriots, they went, 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. And, and Gronkowski is one of those players that I liked, on the Patriots. And, of course, going to Tampa and getting a ring as well. It's, again, what these guys have been able to do is unbelievable. And again, I think it's a good debate to have. I don't think it's, it's not a ridiculous debate. You can't sit there and be like, oh yeah, it's definitely this guy. This guy is definitely not better. I think it's a discussion that you can have, because they both they've both been successful, and it also helps when they have good quarterbacks throwing to them. Patrick Mahomes definitely is a much better quarterback than Alex Smith, but even with Alex Smith, Kelce was still putting up good numbers. But the touchdowns, like I just talked about, they really went up once Mahomes took over as the starter. So listen, it's and it stinks that a lot of these guys are retiring. Gronk and Brady, obviously, being out of the league now. Brady the first full season. Gronk now, this is the second year. At some point, Kelce's going to hang it up. And, Mahomes is going to have to look for, talk about Andy Reid, Mahomes having to, be with a different head coach. You're not going to have Kelce, for that much longer. Kelce's got a couple of good years, you would imagine, and then he's probably going to hang it up, and then you got to look for a different security blanket. So, but again, just got to enjoy it, while we got it, and go from there. So, but let me know what you guys think about this tight end debate. Is it, is it Kelce or Gronk? Who do you view as the GOAT tight end, or is it neither of them? Is it someone I didn't mention? Is it one of the some of the other greats that are before my time? Shannon Sharp comes to mind, obviously, but I guess at least when it comes to these 2 tight ends, who would you say is the better tight end? Again, like I said, I would still take Gronk. They play different styles, of course. Gronk was just a bowling ball, when he played, and just, he was unbelievable. He didn't want to tackle him. And then Kelce, is again more of that elusive tight end. Again, don't want to tackle that either. But don't want to tackle either of these guys in the open field because you're just going to get trucked. But again, good debate to have, and it's been a pleasure to be able to watch these 2 guys throughout their careers. We'll see how Kelce finishes off the career. He can actually tie. Actually, no. You can't tie. He's still got a little bit to go. I was talking about referencing Super Bowl rings. Kelce's still got one more to win. Well, he's still got two more to at least tie. He got this one, and then if they win another one, because Gronk's got 14. He didn't play in 2016, but he got a ring out of that. 2018 and then 2020 with the Bucs. So that is something that he is gonna, if he wants to catch Gronk in terms of hardware, you still gotta, this Super Bowl you win that, and then another one. So we'll see. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this topic. And with that, we will take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we'll take a break from the Super Bowl talk. We'll talk about the Steelers quarterback situation, because ownership had some comments regarding that. And that will be the end of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're not going to talk about the Steelers quarterback situation. So Art Rooney II had some comments regarding the quarterback position. So he basically said they need improvement out of that position. And they also didn't rule out the possibility of trading for a quarterback. So, I mean, there's some quarterbacks out there that they can maybe get. I mean, you talk about, I talked about the other day, earlier in the week, how the Bears, they might not necessarily, move out of the number one spot. They might, stay there, which means, what does that mean for Justin Fields? That means the Bears could probably move off of Fields, and maybe the Steelers say, hey, maybe we would take Fields. That's a possibility. You also look at some of the veteran quarterbacks that could be available in free agency. Kirk Cousins, I know his name has been floated around with the Steelers. There's Ryan Tannehill as well. I mean, again, a lot of these options aren't, they're not, spectacular options. I mean, Kirk Cousins, I think, out of, the three that I just said, but then again, he is coming off of the Achilles injury. But, if you're getting Kirk Cousins, back from the Achilles and he rebounds, he's probably the best option. Because with Justin Fields, he's an elite playmaker with his feet, but still has, some things to work on when it comes to throwing the football. But when he did come back from injury, the Bears did look like a better team. So, you could go that route with Fields. Tannehill's probably number 3 because he's kind of been trending down the last couple of years, and obviously, Will Levis ended up taking over as the starter in Tennessee. But yeah, then you look at what the Steelers have currently. You have Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. I think Mason Rudolph actually is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. But, basically, what Rooney was saying is that he emphasized the importance of quality play at quarterback, talking about Mason Rudolph and his performance, down the stretch. Because, listen, the Steelers made the right call, changing from Trubisky to Mason Rudolph. Steeler fans were chanting for Rudolph. I didn't think it was really going to make much of a difference, but it ended up making a difference because the Steelers ended up making the playoffs somehow. And you know what? Look, they were down by 3 scores. against the Bills, but they did make it a close game at one point. So I do like the fact that they, they didn't just get absolutely destroyed. They made it a game. It also talked about in the article that I was looking at with, Rooney's comments. Pickett struggles, talking about Kenny Pickett now. Pickett struggles with accuracy, pocket presence, and injuries during his second season were acknowledged along with the impact of inconsistent coaching. I mean, yeah, they changed coordinators, and listen, I want to see Kenny Pickett succeed also just because, he has the same name as me, first name. I'll be honest. And listen, I have made some bad investments in the past when it comes to getting football jerseys. I got a Mike Evans jersey for Christmas. He might not even be on the Bucs next year. So, but I wanted a Mike Evans jersey. So, now might have to get rid of put tape over the Bucs logo and put whatever team he ends up going to. I mean, maybe he goes to the Giants. But yeah, I mean, a Kenny Pickett jersey was something that I did get last year. And that might not have been a good investment. But however, Rooney did express confidence in Pickett's potential for development despite his challenges. But yeah. So Mason Rudolph is a pending free agent. I do have that here. Rooney did hint at the possibility of drafting a quarterback or exploring free agent options to add competition to the roster. The importance of hiring the right offensive coordinator to aid in the development of Pickett and other young players was also talked about. Rooney stressed the need for consistency in offensive performance while acknowledging Rudolph's contributions and the benefits of competition at the cornerback position. And yeah, I mean, it's tough right now because the Steelers have a good roster. It's just they're missing the most important thing, a quarterback. Now, can Kenny Pickett still be that guy? We'll see. Because, listen, the Steelers, the year before, looked like they had no shot of doing anything. And then all of a sudden, Pickett started getting hot at the end of the season, and they just missed the playoffs. They went 9-8. So, I mean, I don't think Kenny Pickett's bad, but I do think one of the biggest problems was coaching. I mean, Steeler fans, I mean, how many Matt Canada, I mean, they were firing Matt Canada chants everywhere. Not even at football games. They were at hockey games. I mean, it's just people wanted him gone. I mean, now they bring in Arthur Smith. Not a lot of people like the hire. But, then there's also the argument of, well, look what he did as the coordinator with the Titans. I mean, look at what he was able to do with Ryan Tannehill. That in the 2019 season when he took over as the quarterback, that team went all the way to the AFC Championship game. So there's that argument. So, but then you also got what just happened with the Falcons where it's like, why are you not getting the ball to your playmakers? I mean, you had Raheem Morris making a joke about, the guys on their roster, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. You got to get the ball to your playmakers. And is that going to happen here with the Steelers? Like, George Pickens is your guy at wide receiver. Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. You got Jalen Warren and Najee Harris coming out of the backfield. I mean, the Steelers have good weapons on this team. So it's not like, and you look at the defense led by T.J. Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Again, the roster is good. It's just the players got to be used properly, especially on offense, because that's been the issue. But I mean, again, you look at the landscape of the AFC, and you look at the quarterbacks. I mean, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I mean, the Steelers have given Lamar Jackson problems, his whole career, basically. For some reason, Lamar Jackson, even when the Steelers aren't, clicking on offense, I mean, I'm not going to count the last game of the regular season just because the Ravens sat their starters, but earlier in the season, I mean, the Steelers won. That had to do with, Lamar Jackson throwing interceptions and, receivers dropping passes. So, I mean, that was a team loss, but still, I mean, and go back to a couple years ago, in 2021, the Steelers made the playoffs, and, they won that game. That was like a 1-point game they ended up winning because the Ravens went for 2 and they didn't get it. 2020, the Steelers, I know, beat them in Baltimore. I forget what happened in, they did win because in Pittsburgh, if you remember, because that was the Wednesday game. Because that game was supposed to be on Thanksgiving, but then that got moved because of COVID, and Lamar Jackson didn't play in the game. A lot of starters didn't play in that game. RG3 started, and the Steelers won that game. but that wasn't with Lamar Jackson. But still, you get the idea. You know, you got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow's going to come back. It's just there's a lot of we'll see how Justin Herbert is with Jim Harbaugh now. There's a lot of because I still think Herbert's really good. Now we'll see with Jim Harbaugh taking over how that's all going to play out. But still, I mean, this is a loaded conference. I mean, you got the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and him coming back. We'll see how that goes. It's and then you got the Dolphins, who are a good team. But there's still some question marks with Tua, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's and you see, I again didn't mention the teams in the AFC South. You got Anthony Richardson coming back, and he looked like he was going to have a good season, and then he got hurt. Look at what C.J. Stroud has done. I know the Jags kind of collapsed at the end, but still, I think Trevor Lawrence is still a good quarterback. It's a loaded conference. It is a loaded conference, and a lot of these quarterbacks, you would take them over what the Steelers got right now, and especially with what the Chiefs have been able to do, you need a quarterback that can go toe-to-toe with the best. And Kenny Pickett does not look like that. He's the guy. But again, football's a team sport, so there's that. But you gotta have an elite quarterback. And right now the Steelers, they're kind of in that situation where it's like, well, there's question marks. Can Kenny Pickett answer the bell? And, you bring in competition. Because you know what? You bring in competition, that could definitely light a fire under him. And he could go out there and play really well. Or he could fold and he just shows you he's not the guy. I mean, I think once he got hurt, you put in Trubisky. I mean, that Trubisky just is not good. If they put in Rudolph from the beginning, then they maybe would have won one of the games that Trubisky lost. Because, I mean, once Rudolph came in, they didn't lose a game until they got to the playoffs. But that's just how it was going to go. I mean, the Steelers would make the playoffs. When the Steelers made the playoffs, you're like, well, they're not going to win because they just, they don't stack up well against these teams. And sure enough, yeah, I mean, you're playing in Buffalo and you end up losing. It's just, I don't know. It's tough. Between them and, the Giants, I mean, they haven't been able to. I mean, we'll see what the Giants end up doing. But ever since their franchise quarterbacks have retired, they've been struggling to find that replacement. And obviously with Big Ben, I mean, the last couple of years, yeah, I mean, he was, nearing the end. I mean, he's still. I mean, he wasn't like Peyton Manning 2015 bad, but like it was getting to that point. I mean, those couple of years with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown were a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, it just got to that point where it was time, and and Ben obviously he didn't want to. It seemed like he didn't want to go, but they kind of forced him out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, now they're still kind of looking, and we'll see if Kenny Pickett, can rebound and show that he's the guy. But right now, it's the Steelers are looking to bring in some competition. It seems, whether it is from free agency, trading, or drafting, there's going to be some competition next year. So, and yeah, I mean, again, the Steelers have a good roster, so. They need a quarterback. That's what they need, and that's the biggest thing. The biggest piece. And again, you look at this division, and I also forgot to mention Deshaun Watson too, even though he hasn't really panned out for the Browns. So I mean, listen, you look at your own division. I mean, you take Burrow, you take Lamar. I mean, you probably take Deshaun Watson, even with how he's been playing since the Browns acquired him. The Steelers, that's a position that they have to figure out. And, maybe, with Arthur Smith now as the offensive coordinator and Kenny Pickett's healthy next year and he's the starter next year, we'll see. But, maybe that's not the case and they go in a different direction. Maybe if they bring in somebody that that quarterback ends up being the answer for the time being. But only time will tell. So, that's pretty much it with the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to tune in as we get closer and closer to Super Bowl Sunday. And, again, thank you guys for tuning in. So with that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for watching. Back again tomorrow, same time. And until then, I am Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.